Hi and welcome to day 3 of our posture week. Today we're talking about your pelvis and your pelvis position when you're sitting, and if you sort of have a look around the day-to-day population today, we tend to be in that sort of slumped curly back position. So instead of being nice and straight where we used to sit, we tend to be a curly back position. So this is a spine, obviously. If you're looking at your pelvis position, sorry, my camera skills aren't that great this morning. You're looking at your pelvis position. These are what we call your sit bones. So when you're sitting, you're supposed to be sort of nice and upright on your sit bones. And what tends to happen is that people are sitting in a slumped over position. So we tend to sit behind these sit bones and even sit on our sacrum at the back area here. So what that looks like when you're sort of sitting is, instead of sitting nice and upright, if I try and get a side view of me here, upright through the spine here, we're curled and we're slumped and we sit in like that C-curved position. So that's what we're going to look at today. How can we change that? And the big thing that we're looking at is a loss of pelvic mobility. So when you're sitting and when you're moving, you want to be able to move the pelvis. The pelvis should be able to sit in a position where you can actually move the pelvis from that slumped position and bring it up into that upright position. So you're upright sitting on your sit bones, and as we slump, we sit behind the sit bones. So what we're going to go through today is how to find those sit bones. So what you're going to do is pop your hand under your bottom. So if I come around this side, you'll be able to see my hands under my tail here. What I'm looking for is, as I roll back, you'll feel that the sit bones slide over your hands. So if I'm holding the pelvis and I'm rolling backwards, the sit bones are in front of my hand, and as I sit forwards, the sit bones are on top of my hand. So what I'm after is, I'm just going to find the bony bit of my tail, and then I'm going to allow my pelvis to slide backwards, and you should feel the sit bones roll off towards your fingertips. And as you come up onto your pelvis, you should feel that your sit bones are now digging straight into your fingers. And then obviously if you lean forward, they'll slide off towards your palm. So if you've got your hand that way on, under your tail, and sit right up nice and tall, that is what we call neutral posture. So that is where you would generally want to be, and that's where your pelvis is in a good position. As soon as we slump and we go into that curl position, you're sitting behind your pelvis and therefore sitting behind those sit bones, and that isn't neutral posture. That is basically a slumped posture, which from your sit bone position here, you're then sitting behind, okay? And that will cause a lot of pressure on your lower back, and it can cause issues obviously with tight hips. Everyone knows we get tight hip flexors these days. Everyone knows our glutes turn off these days, and this is one of the main causes. So your homework and your exercise for today is to find that position, work out where it is, and then work on up and down, so getting that curl and trying to get used to getting some pelvis mobility. So what that's going to look like is, when you know where down and up and behind your sit bones and on your sit bones are, that will be your exercise to move from that slumped position, find where they are, to come up into an upright position. Now if you look at my head, as I slump, I lose height. As I sit tall, I'm going to gain height. So again, the slumpier and the more curled and the more curly back C-curve position we are in our spine, the shorter we're going to be, which is why when people find that they correct their posture, they might grow an inch or two, which is great news for those of you who want to be an inch taller. So lesson of the day for posture day number 3 is basically neutral spine, how to find your pelvis position when you're sitting. If you're sitting behind the sit bones, you're going to be in a slump back position, not optimal for your lower back. It's basically going to be where some of the structures in your lower back are on a stretch because they're in flexion. Neutral is when you're on your sit bones and you're upright, and it's the optimal position for loading for your spine, so you're going to be able to sit there for a lot longer before you get sore. Okay, so work on, have you got some pelvic mobility? And these days a lot of the clients that we see come in don't have mobility into neutral. their hamstrings are tight, everything is tight, and it's pulling them even more into that flex position. So tomorrow's posture is going to be about hamstrings. So work on it today, find out if you find out where your neutral is. If not, flick us a comment under the post, and we'll talk about hamstrings in the morning. Thanks for watching.